The Clearwater Historical Society formally organized in 1978 and then became chartered in 1979. And for the time up until now, we've been largely a social organization that has been preserving and providing educational materials regarding the history of Clearwater, but it's become too successful in some ways because we have gotten lots of materials, and the little house that we're in, even though a two-story building, is just jam-packed. So the opportunity came up that this school facility was closing, and we decided to try to go after it and convert it into a multi-purpose use for the society and others. The Plum House is our current facility and museum, and has been since about 1983, when it was moved over to the property it sits on off of South Martin Luther King Avenue now. It was previously on Myrtle, near to the south of Clearwater Cemetery, and actually before that it was in a little town called Bel Air on Lakeview and Fort Harrison Avenue. This town of Bel Air is not the current town, but a town that developed around when the Bellevue Hotel was being built. At one time, this was the only Clearwater school, and it was therefore called Clearwater School. And so this is a cradle of education for Pinellas County. The records that we can find show this is the oldest school and was the oldest continuously operating until it closed in 2008. We learned that this as a school facility was being closed, and we learned of that, and some of the group was very interested in maybe pursuing something of it, and there were others that were not, because it was a big step for a small organization like ours. But as we say, we were gathering more materials and more historical papers, pictures, other donations, and so the old Plum House was becoming more like a big closet rather than a house museum it was designed to be. Well, the excitement is, of course, that this has got so many possibilities. We think that the campus itself, being comprised mostly of 3 main buildings. The oldest one is 1906, we're in right now. The one behind us was built as Clearwater High School, the original Clearwater High School in 1912. And then in the 50s and perhaps even early 60s, some additions were made to a new building in the back that became the cafeteria, kindergarten, and media center. And what's going on now is we're trying to make sure these buildings are in proper shape and condition to operate as this museum, because of sitting empty since 2008, because of the age of the buildings, and strikingly enough that the youngest building is in the worst shape. And we're sitting the oldest building probably is in the best shape. We've been pushing for this, as I say. We got the lease just short of 2 years ago, and we've been working along with other groups like the Clearwater Bombers Men's Fast Pitch Legacy Group that are trying to keep this going. They were 10 times the world champion in that endeavor, here representing Clearwater. Then we got several new people coming to some of the meetings. At this particular time, for the last month or so, the committee has been spearheaded by Joyce Snyder to a task force to get this thing really going and going quickly. I think at first it was the idea we could get it within a few weeks going, and then we face reality that there's a few more obstacles than simply a little bit of chipping paint here or dusty floors. First of all, it's a chance to preserve an old facility that has ties to many people in the community. The other thing is that we think it would provide a venue, a place for people to come and do many things besides look at old historical objects. They can learn about the history of this area and tie to it for their past. And wherever you're from, you have an early history yourself. And if you plan to stay in a community for any length of time, perhaps it might be useful to know a little bit about that community too. But we think it also will take and work towards the future and allow people to understand where we're from, you know, where we are now, and maybe help us get to where we want to go in the future. It feels like it's happening now. The enthusiasm and as been mentioned, the talent and the enthusiasm of this last task force has really got things moving, and it feels like we're on the verge of something really coming about. We get that funding request, at least some of it, and get this talent to work. I don't see any problem with us having a fish fry here. Maybe we'll just have to have a midsummer one out in the heat.